won't keep you long.
No, honey.
Perhaps you'd like a cup of coffee in the meantime.
Oh, thank you. That's most kind of you. You know, this is fascinating reading, this case.
It is, isn't it? Particularly to you, of course. How's the book coming along?
Well enough. Plenty of material in this present crime wave.
There's certainly no lack of stories from our point of view.
Kosh boys, stick-ups, robberies with violence. The police certainly have their hands more than full.
If you want the police viewpoint, Mr. Harding's the man to give it to you.
Well, that's the advantage of being a Fleet Street crime reporter. You get to know the inside story.
Quite.
Not to mention a reserve seat at the Old Bailey for the finale, eh?
Oh, that's a duty I could sometimes do without. How do you do?
Good morning.
Well, here's the finale to that one.
McGuire found guilty. Sentenced to death. Well, I haven't much sympathy, I'm afraid. They generally get what's coming to them in the end.
Guilty?
Yes,
By the way, would you like some coffee, Mr. Harding?
very good idea, thank you.
I'll get you a cup.
Well, my friend, come for some more inside information?
Are you sure it's not troubling you?
Not a bit. Do sit down.
Thank you.
Fascinating, that McGuire case. And it all started with quite another job altogether.
Really?
We picked up the first threads when I was down at the press room at Scotland Yard. It's a curious, tucked-away little place. You'd never find it on a month of Sundays if you didn't know exactly where to go. But it's very useful indeed to us in Fleet Street. It's the only part of the yard, you know, that anyone not in the CID is ever allowed to enter. And even the door leading from the room into the yard is kept locked and on their side. Once there, though, we're given up-to-the-minute stories. Not just official handouts, but genuine help.
And that's interesting.
Oh, they're very cooperative. Of course, they do trust us not to behave like the crime reporters in fiction and start treading on their corns by trying to be detectives ourselves.
Quite. Well, that's understandable.
Well, I go there sometimes. Quite easy, you know. It's
not nice there, I thought. Morning.
Morning.
I was down there one day when an item of news came through.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Nothing very sensational for you today, I'm afraid. There was a smash and grab raid at Shoreditch. Two men driving a small black saloon car flung a hammer through the window of a jeweller's shop of Mr. S.K. Lewis, 115 High Street, grabbed a tray of rings and a number of watches. They drove off immediately. The car was later found abandoned in Mere Street, Sydenham. Jeweller robbery at Ascot Court. Thieves smashed glass panel of door of flat at Ascot Court made of Vale during the absence of owner, Mrs. J.M. Henry, last night, and escaped with jewellery valued at £1,200 and a fur coat. Later, a man was detained. Durham. Elderly woman attacked in sweet shop. Mrs. Jane Robbins, 67, attacked with cosh by youth wearing fawn overcoat. Till rifled. Man now being questioned.
The old lady hurt?
Not badly, fortunately. Taken to hospital, allowed to go home after treatment.
Address?
Let's see, 53 Green Lane, Durham.
Thank you.
Last item, black van containing consignment of cigarettes stolen from outside Ace Cafe on North Circular Road.
That last item was the one that somehow rang a bell. Ace Cafe, North Circular Road.
Yes, it sounds familiar to me. At one time, there was quite a spate of van stealing from that district, wasn't there? 7 or 8 cases in a row?
Exactly. Obviously, some gang was at work whose boss knew the times at which various drivers left their vehicles unguarded.
And, I suppose, the loads they were carrying.
Yes, the whole operation only took a matter of minutes.
fellas have the nerve to steal a lorry load of stuff in broad daylight beats me. And they get away with it.
Ah, but this lot didn't. You see, every day, well, twice a day, in fact, sheets of information are sent to every police headquarters in the country, and every single man on the beat is briefed.
I thought plainclothesmen did all the detective work.
Oh, no. On the contrary. You can't even be a plainclothes man unless you've done at least 2 years as a uniformed constable on the beat.
Stolen cars and other vehicles. Keep a lookout for a trade van, registration number FNM868. Repeat, FNM868, painted black, formerly dual blue. White bar at rear. Small dent on near side front wing. Van stolen from outside Ace Cafe, North Circular Road, London.
But what had that particular theft got to do with this Maguire case?
Oh, that was just the beginning. It was one of a series of jobs which the police knew were organized by the same gang and the brains behind that gang. They didn't know, of course, that Maguire was the boss, but sheer hard work won in the long run.
What was their next move?
Have you ever seen these marks on a cigarette packet?
What's that?
They're secret markings which give the makers immediate information about the machine making any particular batch and when. And then their records give them particulars of consignment and destination and so on.
I'm blessed.
Well, this particular load was traced, and soon after that, the police found they were onto something. A description had also been sent out in code to the mobiles. Their operators listen all the time and take down any messages that concern them.
But one van, rather like looking for a needle in a haystack.
Yes, but the detectives who had been put in charge of the case felt pretty sure that they'd find it abandoned somewhere not far away.
Without the goods,
Right. If the thieves were old hands, they'd know that the registration numbers would be transmitted almost immediately.
so they'd have to transfer the stuff as quickly as possible.
That's exactly what did happen. The two detectives concerned came up with FNM 868 in a back street yard.
But both goods and thieves had gone, eh? Still, I suppose the van was valuable.
It was most valuable. A very useful link in the chain indeed. I was down there at the time and telephoned my story to the paper. While I was doing so, a police breakdown lorry had been sent for, together with its crew and special apparatus. Of course, the steering wheel would be the first place to look for fingerprints, so they always fit an extra one of their own.
I've read a good deal about the fingerprint department, how they brush dusting powder onto the likeliest places and pick up photographically even the faintest impressions.
It's very clever.
And infallible. The Yard have got more than 1 million sets in their files, and those are at the disposal of every police station in the country.
And all these present-day young criminals, are they fingerprinted too?
There are more than 200,000 new sets made every year.
It's extraordinary that they're all different.
Yes, isn't it? Crooks have tried all ways round it, but they never succeed. One chap who had treated his fingertips with acid to burn away the markings, well, he was caught and charged no less than 10 years after his crime. He'd forgotten that nature doesn't alter her patterns, and the walls and ridges had grown again in exactly the same formation.
Didn't a French chap, what was his name, Bertillon, didn't he evolve the idea?
No, that wasn't... his idea was a system of identifying rogues by their bone structure. It was a man called William Herschel who discovered that each human being has individual markings on his fingertips.
Just a moment, let me make a note of that. When was that?
Herschel, 100 years ago. Yes, 1858, to be precise. It was Sir Francis Galton who, at the turn of the century, made an exhaustive study of the subject, and in 1905, Sir Edwin Henry, who was then the Commissioner of Police for the metropolis, he evolved a system of classifying the prints, and that system is now in use all over the world. Meanwhile, I've got quite an interesting story from a little news vendor whose pitch was outside the Ace Cafe. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome, Governor.
He gave me a very graphic description of how he'd been interviewed by the police.
£5'10".
Belt?
Through behind.
That's right.
Brown overcoat.
Yes?
Striped shirt, no collar.
No tie.
Ah. Corduroy trousers, black shoes.
And black hair.
Ah. And a bent nose, eh?
Yes, that's right.
CRO, please.
So the Dick phones the yard. Put through straight away he was, too. And they switches him onto a place they calls the Criminal Records Office. Thousands and thousands of cards and things they got there. They're all particulars of different geezers they've pulled in. Ways they work, the pubs they go to and all that. And all in different boxes. There's a section what tells you all about what he called deformities. Things like cauliflower ears, scars, marks on their hands, busted conchs and the like. Now that calls for me. Of course, I had a nice comfortable ride in the police car. Down Whitehall we goes. Just like a blinking lord going to Parliament. Meanwhile, they'd sorted out a few books from what they calls the Rogues Gallery for me to look at. Cool, you ought to seen some of them. Real beauty parade. I soon spots the bloke. That's him, I says. And it was, too.
This particular beauty was known to be a keen snooker player.
Good heavens, there must be hundreds of billiard saloons.
Yes, there are. And the only thing to do was to try them, just try them, one after the other. Detective work is a long, drawn-out sifting of evidence and long, drawn-out searching.
One shot, eh? Yeah. Haven't seen Sam Murdoch since Liverpool. What's happened to him? Well, he always comes in and drops a few posters to me.
More than a few bob.
You just hang around for a few days. You'll run into him. You're shot out? Thanks, John.
Where do you live in now?
I don't know.
Where do you hang out?
You can always find him round here. Took you so long out there on the phone. Copper from Scotland Yard with questions. I got rid of him.
In one of the last halls they visited, they got news of a meeting arranged between their quarry and another member of the gang.
So they got him, eh?
Unfortunately, no. He was a little too flyable. But they did manage to keep track of his pal and in due course hold him in for interrogation. Like a lot of these minor crooks, he didn't give much away. But he did let slip enough information for them to get that driver. The first real step in the Maguire murder case. time they'd spent in tracking down that young man was not time wasted. I told you, this series of van robberies was the start of the trail which eventually led Maguire to the Old Bailey. But they wanted to make quite sure. The little news vendor's evidence might or might not be correct. There was one way of clinching it, to put the man up for identification. And then, if he were picked out, to find out his part in the scheme of things. Now this is where the police are absolutely fair. The man must be personally identified. So an identity parade is held, and the suspected man himself can pick his own position in a line of, a dozen or more citizens of his own type who've been called in from the street. The line is naturally formed before the witness is allowed to see it. So there's absolutely nothing to indicate which of the men is the one in the hands of the police.
I see.
Here's your copy, Mr. Howell.
Oh, thank you, Mary. I suppose you couldn't find something a bit stronger, could you?
I'll see what I can do.
Good.
Well, now, that was the first step completed, eh?
Well, very nearly completed. The man came up in due course before the magistrate's court. In the meantime, the police went on collecting more and more witnesses.
How did he get on?
Oh, the trial wasn't sensational anyway, not him. He was utterly unimportant. Just a dumb driver. What the police were wanting to get at was the identity of his employer.
Morning, Gav.
Oh, hello. Come to do your stuff in the van case?
That's right. On next, sir.
Oh, well, I'll go in. There's bound to be something of interest. And there was, of course. Fascinating places for studying human nature.
Do you know, I've never been in one of these courts.
Oh, that's sheer luck, my friend. Wait till you're caught for speeding or for knocking a policeman's helmet off on boat race night. They'll provide you with a whole bench of magistrates, an usher, clerk of the court, warrant officer, plenty of policemen. When the case came up, I got my next lead. There was some evidence came out about a black saloon car that had been seen cruising near the Ace Cafe on the morning of the robbery. The famous information room at the yard got busy. That's the place, you know, where all the 999 calls are received. They're in constant wireless touch with their own cars, and the position of the cars is charted minute by minute.
Hello, all cars, MWW, Baker Street, travelling north, Black Saloon.
Record EXO 990, E for Edith, X for Xmas, O for Orange, 990, containing 2 men, M2 GW, standby, over. From 5S, have just sighted EXO 990, St John's Wood Road, moving west towards Edgware Road. We are chasing it, over.
Simple van loads that got too small for them by this time. They were doing the thing in the grand manner, going straight to the warehouses.
Really?
They were getting careless, too. Apparently, they'd used some old tea chests to remove the goods. And I don't know whether they'd been disturbed or not, but they left some of them behind. Those tea chests told quite a story. You know, nothing escapes these chaps, nothing at all. There are forensic laboratories all over the country, and each one has its experts in some particular line. Birmingham, pathology; Cardiff, forgeries; Preston, bloodstains and poisons; and Nottingham, dust fibers and soils. And famous scientists, top-flight pathologists like the late Sir Bernard Spilsby, for instance, put their knowledge at the disposal of the Yard.
And is that information available to the ordinary police station as well?
It certainly is. Now, what it does, I suppose, is act as a sort of central department, ready to help the local police if necessary, and then only when asked.
I see. You mean that each police unit is complete in itself?
Mm-hmm. Every area has its own chief constable, superintendent, inspectors, sergeants, and its own CID. Why, in London alone, you know, there are 23 divisions, including the Thames Division or the River Police, they're known as. They're the oldest section of all. Started, way back in 1798 by the West India Company of Merchantmen to protect their shipping on the river. They used to be armed with cutlasses and they used rowing boats. Nowadays, they're equipped with 80 horsepower, 15-knot launches. Oh, and by the way, the famous Wapping Old Stairs was the site of their original headquarters.
You know, I had no idea the police force went back so far.
Oh, they have a very long history, very long indeed. You've heard of Fielding's Bow Street Runners?
Oh, yes.
I've got a picture of them somewhere. Yes. Yes, here we are. They were centred at Bow Street. Before them, of course, was the old tipstaff who carried his warrant to the top of his staff, and then in 1829 came Sir Robert Peel's top-hatted gentlemen, the Peelers.
And still spoken of today as London's bobbies.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, by the way, do you know why New Scotland Yard?
Well, when the CID started, there were only 8 of them, by the way, in those days, they were housed in a building at the top of Whitehall by Charing Cross. That was known as Great Scotland Yard. It stood on the site of a palace where visiting Scottish VIPs and their retinues were put up when they visited the English courts. But the department grew and grew, and in 1890, the first of the 3 new buildings was finished. Ironically enough, you know, the foundations, 2,500 tons of granite, were quarried by the Dartmoor convicts.
Somewhat grim present from professional admirers, eh?
At one time, the carpet in the press room I was telling you about was made in the workshops of Wormwood Scrubs.
You were also telling me about the 2 chaps in the black car.
Oh, yes. Each of those 2 gentlemen got a fairly heavy sentence.
Uh-huh. And that was closing, eh?
Yes, things were getting narrowed down. And then one day, a member of the Yard's ghost squad who was...
Ghost squad?
Oh, yes, you hadn't heard about that, have you? Well, that's the name given to a whole lot of men and women, too, who do nothing except collect information for the Yard from the underworld, pass it on to the police. They never make an arrest, they never give evidence in court, and they're never seen anywhere or in any place where they could conceivably be recognized. Well, anyhow, this particular man one day picked up an important tip.
Here you are, sir. That'll be 8pence. Ain't it? Thank you.
It's all fixed, you mug. Maguire, don't leave nothing to chance.
Yeah, but suppose something...
Suppose nothing. Now listen to me. Oh. Hold on. You know when you go down East India Club?
Yeah.
Here you are, Enrico. 2 quarts. Will you want any extra tomorrow?
No, the usual, I think. No, leave 1 more pint. Maria should do the cooking.
Okay, got the book? I'll put it down.
I fetch you, man.
He caught certain words. Friday, Maguire, docks, day 14. Quite enough to give him a lead.
Ah, here's the book. I paid Friday.
That's right, Enrico. Lots of people pay Fridays.
Yeah.
1 pint extra. Well, so long.
So long.
Morning, gents.
Good morning, Nobby.
Good morning. See you.
That information and a good deal more reached the yard almost before the crooks had finished their coffee. The information was circulated to those concerned by telephone, pipeline, and by the Crete teleprinter. In fact, the most up-to-date apparatus is you. Walkie-talkie, as it is called, is brought into play on occasions.
Message received, over.
And so one night, blissfully unaware of what was in store for them, Maguire and his gang arrived at a certain warehouse down by the docks.
Good. You were doing what? Well, you come with me.
Okay. Yeah, all right. So in a moment of panic, Maguire made his one really big mistake.
And he killed the night watchman.
Yes, he shot the poor old man. He died on the operating table. It was rather pathetic, really. I went down to the hospital, and his wife was there.
I thought you'd like this.
Thank you, miss.
Give this to Sister James, please.
Very good, nurse.
Good evening. Daily Comet. I've come to ask if there's any news of the night watchman who was shot.
Not yet, sir. They're operating now.
He won't die, will he? I never dreamed a thing like this could happen to Fred.
Oh, I'm sure he'll be all right. They'll do everything they possibly can, I know that. And they did. Of course it didn't matter that he was just a humble backstreet casualty. One of the finest surgeons in the country put every atom of his skill into the job of trying to save that old man's life. And when I think of that sad-eyed, brave old woman sitting there waiting and waiting, well, it makes my blood boil. Some people say the death penalty is too severe and that these armed, trigger-happy hooligans are just maladjusted cases for the psychiatrist. Do they ever stop to think, I wonder, of the sorrow and the pain and the heartbreak for which these crooks are responsible? No, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And yet to the last, scrupulously fair. Not vengeance, but justice. Evidence for and against given impartially. The judge watching the law and the conduct of the case, and 12 good men and true, the real arbiters. It's on their decision and theirs alone that the final verdict rests, guilty or not guilty. Oh, you can read about cases in the papers, but even the most descriptive writing can't convey the solemnity and the tremendous sense of responsibility there is about a court of assize. I sat there many times. Suppose I'm hardened a bit by now, but I'm still deeply affected by the way in which everything goes forward so steadily and so inexorably. And for the prisoner at the bar, now comes the time of waiting. Has it been proved beyond all reasonable doubt that his was the hand that fired that fatal shot? Will the jury decide for him or against him? The pros and cons are tossed to and fro like shuttlecocks, but at last...
Members of the jury, are you agreed upon your verdict?
We are.
And do you find the prisoner guilty or not guilty of murder?
Guilty.
And that is the verdict of you all?
Yes.
Prisoner at the bar, you stand convicted of murder. Have you anything to say why sentence of death should not be passed upon you?
Oh yea, oh yea, oh yea. My lords, the King's justices do strictly charge and command all persons to keep silence while sentence of death is passed upon the prisoner at the bar upon pain of imprisonment.
Prisoner at the bar, you stand convicted of murder. The sentence of the court upon you is that you be taken from this place to a lawful prison and thence to a place of execution, and that you be there hanged by the neck until you be dead, and that your body be afterwards buried within the precincts of the prison in which you shall have been confined before your execution. And may the Lord have mercy on your soul.
Amen.
So McGuire pays. An eye for an eye.
That's it. You know, these cliches about the long arm of the law and crime doesn't pay are only cliches because they're true. How can crime pay? Every crook, whether a petty pilferer, a confidence trickster, or a murderer, is up against a machine which is so much bigger and so much better organized than he can ever hope to be. And that machine, served by men day after day with loyalty and courage and patience, is bound to win in the end.
Managed to find these for you.
Well, now, isn't that nice? Thank you very much. You couldn't have come at a better moment. I'll give you a toast to Scotland Yard. In bygone days, a palace, and now a busy workshop of patient effort in the war against crime. I don't suppose these chaps expect us to drink to them, but we will. From the beginner on the beat to the Commissioner of Police himself, good luck and long life to the men of Scotland Yard.